And just I want Death dead, which is ironic, and I want Thaddeus dead. Welcome back once again to another book review. Now, the book we are going to be talking about today is The Sun Warrior by P.C. Cast. This is the second book in the Strange World series, and that consists of 4 books. So, I will say the second book continues directly after the end of the first book, so you cannot read this series out of order because they're one right after the other. There's no time skips, there's no bend to the story. You have to watch one, or you have to read them in order. So I don't have the physical copy of this. I read it on my Nook, and I got a new case for my Nook because, as you can see behind me, right there, all of my shelves, my desk, and my end table over there are black, so my black case just kept blending in with everything that I owned, and I kept being like, where did it go, when it was right in front of my face. So I got a new case, and yeah. But with that being said, there are going to be spoilers for this book, and thus the one that came before it. So if you're interested in this series and you would like to read it for yourself, and you don't want it spoiled for you, I would suggest reading it before you watch this. Or if you're someone that doesn't care about spoilers, welcome in, come with me if you want to. But with that being said, let's get into the characters. The characters in this book are much the same as they were in the first book. You have our main characters, Mari and Nick, and then you have Sora and Thaddeus. Those are the main 4. There are other characters, but there's a lot of them, and more keep being added on throughout the book, like Andreas, a person from the cat tribe. I'll explain more about that whole bit soon. The only one of the main 4 that I can't stand, and that is by design, is Thaddeus, because he is a person very much filled with hate, and just, I don't know if he hates himself and he's projecting that on everybody else, but he is just so filled with hate that he is blinded by it, and that there's no getting through to him. But I'll talk about that more later. The other 3 main characters, Mari, Nick, and Sora, they're so much fun to read. I love the way that they interact with each other. I love the way that they react to all the side characters, and I love the way that they work in the world. And Nick and Mari's relationship is just so cute. It is so cute. But I'll talk about that more in my thoughts, so let's get into those. Now, at first, this book starts out right after the first book, where you see our group fleeing from the fire that had taken Nick's home, and they're trying to learn to recover from that. And because the fire devastated Nick's home, and Mari found out that she is not just an Earthwalker, but a companion like Nick and his tribe are, they come together. And Nick and Mari start to realize that they care about each other as more than friends, and they start to develop a relationship, which is so cute. They're so cute. I love them two together. But I feel like this book took way too long on the fact that they were fleeing from this fire. They did not get away from the fire in the forest till like page 100. That is a long time to be stuck in the same scenario that started in a previous book. So it started to get a little old and a little like boring to read, because you're like, okay, the hype of the fire is over. we've already know that there's a lot of wounded, and because there's a lot of wounded, there's a lot of sick people, because there's this disease called the blight. And what it is if you even get a slight cut, it will get into the wound and it'll fester. And then you get these like weird pus things and your skin starts to fall off. It's gross. So if you don't like body horror, this probably won't be a book for you, because there's a lot of mention of skin just falling off and shedding off because of this disease, and a lot of talk of like gross sores. So if that's something that's not for you, I wouldn't read this series, because that's like a main plot of it is how our group of evil people are using that sickness to infect and take over Nick's tribe, which Thaddeus is a part of, and that's why he's such an asshole. I mean, he was an asshole before he joined the villains, but he joined the villains and became 10 times more of an even worse asshole. So, and on top of all the like gross descriptions which tell you how bad this disease infests you, there's also a lot of talk of forced sexual doings. Nothing is specifically written down on the page, it's implied or it's started and then cut away from. But this book talks about that way too much, and at points it got really hard to read. Not hard enough to read where I stopped, although there was one time that I had to like step back for a second because one of the characters was being attacked and it was not comfortable. I don't think that needs to keep being brought up as much as she or he is bringing it up. I don't know if I think she's a she. I don't think that needs to be brought up as much as she is bringing it up in the book. But as I said, evil people. There's, I think, 5 different tribes. There's the Earthwalkers, which is Mari's tribe. The Sun Warriors, which is Nick's tribe. The Lynx people, which is Entry's tribe. I don't know how to pronounce his name. And there are the City Dwellers, or the Skin Stealers of Deadeye's tribe. And then there's the Horse tribe, which we have not been introduced to yet. And they're called the Wind Riders. But one of the tribes, Deadeye's tribe, the Skin Stealers, steal skin because they found that it is the only way to stop this disease. They fillet the skin off of an animal or even another person, and they put it in their own wounds. Again, if you don't like body horror stuff, this book is not for you. But they put it in their wounds, and somehow, some way, not only does that heal them of the skin sloshing disease, but they're imbued with the power of whatever they took the skin from. Like, for example, Deadeye takes the skin of a really big stag, a really big deer, and he ends up taking the abilities of the deer into himself, and even starts growing horns. But I didn't like Deadeye's perspective to begin with in book 1, and in book 2, Deadeye's perspective gets even harder to read because he gets taken over by Death himself. And all I can say is, at least Deadeye had respect for his girlfriend and treated his girlfriend with respect, because when Death comes in the picture, I'm like, I don't need to see the villain's perspective. Just let the villain do their thing in the background. I don't want to see it. I don't care about this character. I want him deader than a doornail permanently. Like, if there's a way to stop death, he needs to be stopped, because oh my goodness. Like, he even talks about waking up his true companion and making Dove the vessel for life, because life and death are yin and yang. They're together whether they like it or not. And Life's like, no, the last time we took over, everything was shit. We ruined everything, mainly because you have no self-control. And he's the reason behind the skin disease. He's the reason behind the fire. He got in Thaddeus's head and used Thaddeus's hate to make him 10 times worse. And he is able to worm his way into Thaddeus's head, because the disease is like a gateway for death. It puts you on death's door, so to speak, so death can then come in and talk to the person directly and like whisper like evil things in their ear and make people do it. So because Thaddeus was already infected with the skin stealer disease, and the skin stealers had filleted a piece of skin off his canine and put it in his wounds, Thaddeus is like, whoa, we're so much stronger when we use our canines like this than when we just let them walk beside us. Because if you remember from my review of the first one, when they bond with a canine, it's like they actually bond with the canine. Like, they can feel everything the canine feels, they can communicate through their thoughts. If the canine dies, the human wants to die unless another canine chooses them. Or if the human dies, the canine just dies. So it's kind of like his Dark Materials in a way, if you know what that is. But so Thaddeus, taking things to a disgusting level, hurts his own canine for his own gain, which is considered one of the most vile acts you can do in their tribe. Thaddeus convinces the rest of their tribe to do the same. And just, I want Death dead, which is ironic, and I want Thaddeus dead. So, we'll see, but the villain side of things is not fun to read, but Mari and Nick's relationship is so cute. It's so cute. Like, I love their banter. I love the way that they always have each other's backs. They feel like they've been in the relationship for their entire lives, but they've only known each other for like a year. And it's so cute. They are so cute. They're always supportive. They're always down to like protect each other. Their banter is just adorable, and they play fight like an old married couple. And this book doesn't push spicy, which I am so happy about, because there have been times where I've been reading a book, and even though it's in the young adult category, there's a detailed, fully written out spicy scene, and I'm like, whoa, was not expecting that, because I'm not reading a romance, and this was supposed to be young adult. But I love that this author realizes that you don't need to have spice in the romance to make it freaking adorable. And they're so cute, and watching them together just makes me smile every time. And then you got characters like Sora and Davis and Nick, not Nick, I already said Nick, and O'Brien. Like, they're just sweethearts, and I hope the best for these characters. And I like Andreas and Triss. I think it's Andres. Don't quote me on that. But I like his banter with everybody else, and the way that him and his lynx interact, because lynx are to their tribe like the dogs are to Nick's tribe. I love this book, even despite my hatred of the villain side of things. Hatred might be a strong word, but don't like reading the villain side of things. Every time their perspective comes up, I'm just like, can we... I don't skip it, but I'm like, can we get back to the others, please? Because they are so much fun to read, and I want the best for these characters, and I cannot wait to see what happens next, because we've left the characters in a bad situation at the end of book 1, and I'm like, oh no, oh no. And now Death has put a marker on Mari, so I'm like, uh-oh. So I'm really enjoying this series so far, and it is not a series that I ever heard of, and it's by an author that I didn't like the books that I have previously read from them, so I would not have picked up again. So I'm glad I was introduced to this series by my aunt, because I am loving it so far. So I'm about to start book 1 or book 3 as soon as I'm done with this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you next time.